Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. We're back at it again, working on the boat. In this episode, the end goal is to have the boat back in the water for the first time in 3 years. If you need a little refresher, this is a Riva Tropicana 43. This is an Italian-made yacht that some very wealthy person bought, shipped over to Seattle. Many years later, I had the opportunity to buy it. I bought it from Seattle, shipped it down to Portland, did a little bit of work on it to have a party on it for the 4th of July. Turns out the internet loved it, so we kept working on it. Then we took it out to the ocean, had a fun little trip out to the ocean, and on the way back, engine had oil starvation and blew up. Ever since then, it's been parked here in Astoria, where we've been working on it, pulling out the old diesel engines, replacing them with new LSX race engines. And in the last episode, we got the engines fired up for the first time. Huge milestone for us. Now the next milestone is in today's episode, when we're gonna take this boat, get it so it's seaworthy, it's ready to be put on the water, everything's firing up, everything's working correctly, and we're gonna plop it in the water. Today's Thursday, and we have our meeting, we have our appointment to get lifted from this spot where we are right now and put in the water over there on Monday. It currently looks like this, so we've got a lot of work to do. So we actually cheated and got a little work done off camera. Yesterday we were here tuning the engines. We plugged in our laptop with our Holly tuning software. We put a full new tune on each one of these engines and got them running a lot better. The idle air controllers were making a lot of noise on this engine, and we found out one of them was actually broken. It was surprising it was running as well as it was in the last episode. But we got that diagnosed, not fixed, and we've got new idle air controls, but before we do that, we want to go ahead and get our throttles hooked up. Now that was a big thing. If you guys remember, we took the throttles out of there. They had a lot of corrosion and a lot of pitting on them. So we decided to do a full restoration on them, and to show you that, we're gonna send it back to the shop. Before we get down to work, I want to take a second out to thank our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by AG1. Now, I love AG1. I've been taking it for years, and I have found it is, no joke, the single most beneficial thing that I've done for my health in the last few years. The benefits that I've seen from AG1 make me just, I tell every single person about it. It has a noticeable change for me in my energy levels throughout the day. It helps me with my gut bacteria, it helps me with my weight loss, and it helps me just feel healthier overall. And when I can get all of that in just a quick little scoop, throw it in the shaker and drink it down, it only takes me a couple minutes. Doesn't even taste bad. At first I didn't really like it, and then I think my brain related the fact that it makes me feel so good to the way it tastes, and now I love it. And it's just like the most simplistic boost I can do for my day. I love it. If you buy AG1 using my link in the description, you're gonna get a little free bonus. You'll get a year's supply of D3K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. This is a game changer for supporting your immune system. AG1 provides your body with everything it needs for optimal performance every single day. And like I said, AG1 is gonna give my community, you guys, a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Huge thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this episode and supplying me with so much AG1 over these years. I really appreciate it. Let's get back to work. In the last episode, we pulled the throttle and transmission controls off of the boat. These things have had a hard life. They're probably 30-something years old, 30-plus years old, and they have been aged by the weather. And working-wise functionality, they were totally fine. Cosmetically, I did not like them. So first thought was, hey, how expensive could it be? Let's just buy new ones of these. $350 a set, totaling $700 for the two of them. I thought, no way, I'm not gonna spend all that money. It could be a good opportunity for refinishing. So here at B is for Build, we usually build new stuff rather than restoring stuff, but this time we're gonna do a restore and a refinish to try and save a lot of money over the $700 price tag of buying these things new. And I'm really excited. We're gonna be using a coating system called Cerakote. I know a lot of you guys out there are familiar with it. It's gonna be our first time using it, so this is gonna be a really cool learning experience for us. First step though, we gotta take these things apart, we gotta break them down, we gotta degrease them, and we gotta sand all of this pitting and stuff out of the chrome. Well, sand all the chrome off actually, so we're down to the bare aluminum. Oscar just wrapped up the chrome removal on these, this is the transmission controls. So we had to disassemble this whole unit. We've actually got a little bit of paint stripper on here. We're trying to get at some of the harder to reach areas just to finish it off. But so you can see those are the stalks that went into here, and really hard to get out because a lot of stuff was corroded. So there was a welder involved and other things. But once we got this thing into multiple pieces, got it all sanded down, and then finished out. They're nice and smooth. They're looking really good. Got all the chrome off. So the idea is that we're going to Cerakote this whole top surface, and we'll just leave the bottom surface as it was, and we'll call it good. So the next step is, well, Oscar's got the throttle cable left to do, and then I'm going to start working on, we're going to soak these things in some acetone to make sure that there's no level of grease on these at all, and then start masking them up for the spraying of the Cerakote. All right, we got our parts prepped. We've got them hung. We've got them degreased with acetone. We are ready to spray the Cerakote. I've been emailing back and forth with Cerakote for actually a couple of years, and I found out they're just down south from us, all the way south, the bottom of Oregon. I hit them up. I let them know what we had going on, and they were happy to provide us with the materials. So we've got, let me show you. We've got kind of like a beginner's kit. So we've got a gun from them, and then we've got the E250 titanium. Both of these they recommended to us because they are super good in the elements. And then the other one is the E100 blackout. You see this on a lot of firearms. The stocks are going to go the titanium color. The blackout is a more matte color. That's going to go on the bases. We're kind of just matching what we had from the factory minus chrome because I don't want that. Now, we're brand new at Cerakote. You guys have seen, if you've watched the channel, you've seen how many times we've messed up painting. Cerakote's kind of like painting and then baking. Let's just see if we can get through this following the directions, the instructions, and then if we have any useful tips or something, we'll let you know. This is one of those things, just watch and follow along with us and see how much we could screw it up, because I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm doing here. I will teach you our first learning experience. If you get the beginner's gun and you see the cup and it looks like the lid for the cup is like machine rolled over lip over onto the cup, don't do what we did and call customer support. Tell them you don't know how to open the cup. It's actually, it's just rolled up on itself. The lid's, that was embarrassing. That was an embarrassing phone call to make. The next day and the results from Cerakote are in. So on our black pieces, we're really happy with the finish. We got a great, thick, very strong finish, good gloss level. Everything is exactly how we would have wanted it. On our handles here, the gray pieces, we had a failure. Not super uncommon for the first time you're doing something like this. Like I said, when we started painting cars, man, did we have a lot of failures. You can see the bubbling in the Cerakote that we have here, and it almost looks like pitting. It's not pitting. There's something underneath the Cerakote that rose up to the surface and damaged the Cerakote finish as it was drying. From the research that we've been doing, this is common with grease or contaminants under the surface. A lot of people dunk their parts in acetone and leave them there for like a day to fully get all that grease and stuff out of there. And I think that it's just basically we just didn't do a good enough job cleaning. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to strip the Cerakote off. We're going to clean it again. We're going to sand it all down. Then we're going to wax and degrease. We're going to acetone it. Then we're going to bake it in case there's any oils or any grease deep down in those pores. It'll help bring that to the surface. Then we're going to clean it once again with the degreaser, and then we're going to spray our Cerakote and give it another try. Got our controls out of the oven, and taking the time to refinish them was definitely the right answer. Now, I'll show you these pictures that we took here. We had basically old spots that were pitted where we worked on them and we sanded down, but they still had these weird blemishes left in the metal, and that is what caused the bubble up from before. We were worried it would happen again, but we just followed all the procedures that we could, that we knew, as far as soaking them in acetone, baking them off, re-acetoning them, and just really cleaning them as best as we could. And we managed to get the perfect Cerakote finish on all of these. So we're really happy with the result. It was worth taking the time to do it again and do it right. And this is actually a pretty quick turnaround process when you consider how fast it is to spray them up and bake them just for an hour. It's pretty cool stuff. Big thanks to Cerakote for sending us the supplies to do all this stuff. We really appreciate you guys. And hopefully we'll continue doing cool stuff with Cerakote in the future. We've got our dedicated oven now, so it's pretty cool. Now we're gonna start, they're cooling down right now. They were 300 degrees about 10 minutes ago. So we're gonna let them cool down a little bit, start the assembly. Let me show you this little piece that we gotta make. It'll be a fun little challenge. We took these guys apart. You can see right about here, there's a little hole. Right here, there's a little hole too. It's for a piece, looks something like this. It's a mix of like plasticky, rubbery stuff. And it went in there, and it's kind of a guide piece. And these were toast. They were destroyed. So I got a couple clean images of one, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into the 3D software now and try our best to use those images as a reference and build a 3D model. And now it's time to introduce this bad boy. This was sent to us by Creality, so huge thanks to them. The link is going to be in the description. We just got it set up. This is a Creality K1. It is a lightning fast 3D printer. My big 3D printer at home prints at 50 millimeters per second. This one can print at 300 to 600 millimeters per second. It's jam-packed full of all sorts of technology that allows it to print really, really fast. We just got it set up. Let's print a Benchy and see how the test goes. So Benchy is like a little boat model that's become really popular in the 3D printing world because it stresses a lot of different parameters on your 3D printer. And if your 3D printer is set up correctly, it'll come out looking like this. And if it's not, it can come out looking like a mess. So it's a good test of a lot of different parameters. And I'm happy to say that this printer right out of the box is set up, it's ready to go. So into the 3D modeling software, this is 3D Studio Max. I've set up some reference images, and basically you just trace the images, build the shapes, and then you set everything to scale by using a standard measurement tool. So I used digital calipers inside the shop, measured the little piece that I had, then I set my 3D model to be the same length as the one in real life, and then all the other proportions, in theory, should be correct. Another really cool thing about this more modern printer is it has its own slicing software now, and it's wirelessly networked, so I could just basically set up the print parameters of how I want to print this thing, which was just really tight layers. So it's a really solid piece with no infill, so it's just a 100% solid piece of plastic, and since it's so small. And then one cool thing for me that's a novelty is I could just hit a button, it wirelessly sends it to the printer, and it's off and printing. And with this printer, I'm just thrilled with how fast it's able to print things. So, you know, a quick prototype like this, it's a 5-minute print from start to finish, and actually print time was only about like 3 minutes. And side-by-side comparison of the piece to the original, it looks really close. It looks good, it fits well in the piece, so we're ready to print the official. So what I did was I had that piece, and then I had to make 8 of it, and then I mirrored it and made 8 more, sent it off to the printer, and it's printing a gang of them. 16 pieces in total, only took 1 hour to print all this stuff. So huge thanks to Creality. Our official review of the Creality K1 is this thing's golden. It's awesome. It's a great machine. It's really good for beginners too, because right out of the box, it works fantastically. The technology has come along a lot over the last few years, and it's like no muss, no fuss, and it prints lightning fast. So I'm giving this an A+ review. They have a K1 Max. If you're into automotive, bigger the better. So Creality, if you want to ship us one of those K1 Maxes, we would absolutely love it, because oftentimes in automotive you're making a little bit bigger pieces than the build plate on this one. But I highly recommend this machine, and there's going to be a link in the description. So Creality, big thanks for sending that out. We're really happy with it. Now let's take our little pieces here and apply them to our freshly Cerakoted parts and finish this DIY restoration. Got them reassembled. They are looking slick. They work really well. I'm really happy. The clearances are looking good. The 3D printed parts applied well. Everything is awesome. Let's get them back on the boat. So happy with how these things came out. They look phenomenal, and I'm really glad that we did the restoration because it was a good learning process for us as well. Really cool to know how to like recoat stuff now. So next step is Oscar's going to work on getting these bolted back into the helm, and then one of these needs some cable work. And so once we get them bolted back in, we can show you how everything goes. We'll start showing you how we're going to route the cabling for the throttle and the trans. Oscar got the controls back in the helm and the cabling running out, and it's just a little bit funky here with the trans cabling because one engine, we use the trans to have the opposite direction propellers, so the engines are spinning the way that they're spinning, and this one, for instance, we know this needs to go this way to make the boat go forward, and that spins the prop clockwise. The other one is going to need to do the opposite and spin the prop counterclockwise, and the props back in the back of the boat are built so they'll both propel the boat forward through the water. The funky thing is that you need that control when you hit both of them forward to do two separate things. So we're gonna get that all done and show you how it works. Oscar's got all the trans cabling ran, and so you can see our transmissions, they came with these brackets, and then from there we were just kind of running to the marine store and getting all the right fittings and everything. And then there's the crazy problem of wiring them so they work forwards and backwards. Now the controls kind of handle a lot of this. So Oscar, as you go forward on each one, that one is going to push it forward, but then forward on this one actually pulls it backwards. So it's pretty cool. As Oscar goes, hey, go ahead and just, forward does two different things, backwards that's neutral. Now go forward, that's forward, neutral, and then go backwards and backwards. Pretty cool. So that is our transmission shifting for the first time. Now we're on to the throttle cables. Throttle cables just need to get adapted to the cabling that comes from Holley. It goes 2-in-1 since we have a dual plenum intake. So it's going to go 2-in-1 into that junction right there, and then we're building an adapter basically to adapt it straight up to our throttle cabling, which is the red ones. The red ones mean business. And then they're going to get bolted onto each one of the heat exchangers on the right side of the engine. Look at that sunset. Guys, we got a lot of cool stuff done, but it's real dark. I can't show you any of it. We'll come back tomorrow morning, bright and early, show you what's up. We're back for another beautiful day out at the beach. I can't stress how wonderful the weather is here. I'm so glad we didn't do this in the middle of winter. Yes, we lost a little bit of the boating season, but well worth it. Oscar's main focus yesterday was the transmission cables, which we already showed you working, and the throttle cable. So Oscar, if you want to go ahead, and we're at throttle all the way down now, and are throttling up, and then you can leave it there and the handle stays there and the throttle stays back. Really, really cool. Basically what we did is Holley provides, when you buy the dual plenum intake, they have this 2-to-1 that takes you for your dry-by cable throttle bodies. It does a 2-into-1 into this little conjunction unit, and then we adapted from that to the previous boat cabling, because there's no way to go from the yacht cabling into this like straight into it. So we had to build a little adapter. It looks really clean, just needs a little bit of paint, but it's a pretty cool way of doing it. So that's set up on both engines, and that is super, super cool, and I'm really, really happy with the way that came out. The throw is perfect. All the way down is all the way down. All the way up is full friggin' throttle. While Oscar was working on that, I was working on two really important things. One thing to make us help not explode, and one thing to make us help not sink. This boat has 3 bilge pumps, and bilge pumps are used to pump water off of your boat. This one's a little dirty, but not to be disappointed. It works just fine. And this trigger was not working, so I got the trigger working. So that's an automatic float trigger. So if water rises up on that, it'll trigger and turn on the bilge pump automatically. The manual for the bilge pump was working. So we got the automatic trigger there working. Automatic trigger in the back and the front of the boat are working. So our 3 bilge pumps are now fully functioning. And then over here is the alarm. So say your bilge pumps don't work and you need your neighbors in the marina to know. This whole unit, the old one, was broken. So we replaced it, and now that is good. So those were like 2 must-haves before we go onto the water, because if our boat starts to sink at night and we're not there, we need people in the marina to know about it and to be able to come help us. On the not exploding front, we did some cool stuff about evacuating fumes from down here. So older boats that ran gas engines are carbureted. Most boats that run gas engines are carbureted. Carbureted engines have fuel literally sitting in the carburetor that can vaporize and then blow up. Now we're running fuel injection, so the fuel is all under high pressure lines. There should be no fuel vapors or anything getting into the into this engine section. But if there are, we need to have proper precautions and proper things in place. And one of those things that boats come with, and this boat came with too, is blowers. So on each side there are these guys right here, and they suck the gasoline vapors, the theoretical, if there was gas or diesel vapors, from down there. Now they were wired to the key, and I thought, you know what, I'd rather have them wired to a switch so we can run them at any time. So I repurposed a switch that we're not going to use, instrument lights, so you can go ahead and hit it off here. And that kicks on our blowers from over there, that run down to there, and our blowers that run from there and into there. And that just sucks the air out of the engine compartment and blows it overboard. So that's something that we'll turn on 3 to 5 minutes before we use the boat, and we'll leave it on the entire time that we are using the boat, in case if we, you know, have an accident, it'll help with the vapors. But we're gonna do even better. On boats that are fueled by gasoline, a gasoline fume detector is a smart thing to have down there in the engine compartment. What it does is it basically is sniffing the air around it, and if it gets like halfway to what would be a flammable gas air mixture, it sounds an alarm. So I went for double redundancy. I bought 2 sets of those. So if one set has like a weird silent failure, the next set would still be viable too. I got 2 sets of those, and we're gonna be installing them right now. And they're gonna go right here in the dash so we can see them. Now they have a very audible alarm. It's like 70 decibels, so we would hear it anywhere on the boat, but just so we can see it, we know they're working. I was looking around here at an old 3D printed part, and I kind of honestly rushed this part. It's really good for holding our Garmin in place, but it was made for an older cell phone. I have a battery case now, so my cell phone doesn't fit in there anymore, and it has this empty space over here. So I went ahead and went on the computer and modified it to have some space for our gas fume detectors, and I hit print. And this printer here is an old one that we've used a ton. It's Creality CR10 Max, and it has a huge print volume. It allows us to print large objects like this, and I use it so much in the automotive world and the building world. I absolutely love this thing, but it is a lot slower. It's like 6 to 10 times slower than the other printer that we were using earlier in this episode. And here's the end result. Fresh off the 3D printer, we went ahead and installed in the shop the gas detector bezels and the screens. The detector actually runs down, obviously down there towards the engines. So changes from this model, the old model, to this model is obviously gas detectors right there, widen out the thing to fit bigger size phones, and then I added a USB port right here, which will be powered from down there. So we're gonna go ahead and get this old Garmin holder out and start working on wiring this one in. Alright, I got no idea what we're calling this thing, but it is installed. The new version, 2.0 is installed. So the Garmin's in, Garmin's working, bigger phone holder, USB port right here, and then gas detectors. So this switch right here does the gas detectors. You can see them cycle through the lights, and then they're gonna light up okay. And then you can test them like this. Big old alarm. This one as well. So that's awesome. The gas detectors are installed and functioning properly. That's the switch for them, and this is the switch for the blowers. So my thoughts are, you jump on the boat, you immediately turn on the gas detectors. That would be on the whole time that we're using the boat. And then you're gonna turn on the blowers after you're sure that there's no gas fumes. Turn them on just to make sure that it stays good in good condition down there. So that's awesome, and those are installed. One thing before I jump into this void right here, I mentioned this earlier in another episode, but I did not see a lot of comments about it. Anybody has any idea how we can recreate these? These are little pieces of aluminum that looks like they've been laser etched to have the writing on them. I'd love to relabel these so I could say, you know, this is engine blower, that's engine blower, this is the gas detectors, and we can also refresh these because this one is really sunburnt. So if anybody out there has any ideas, let me know. Now, I saw all of your guys' comments though about the dash, saying don't leave the dash raw aluminum. It's going to blind you. Yeah, we didn't plan on it. So here we go. And here's the end result of that. Now, we went for a paint match. We got a pretty good paint match, but it's matching a lot better with the more bright color. So you can see like that's a direct match. But in here it's a lot darker. I think because it's seen a lot less sun, so then it looks like it's standing out a little bit more. So I think we are gonna wanna find another paint color that's a little bit darker in shade, but overall it's pretty good, so we'll keep working on it. It's really, really easy to repaint this, so that's not a problem. It's really all the other hard work that goes into it that makes it tough. So, and then what you're seeing here, noticing the screens, these are screen protectors that I've been working on making for the screens so they don't get like sunburnt or anything. These are a work in progress 3D printing project, again with the large format 3D printer. They need to be a little bit tighter in my opinion, although that one's feeling pretty tight. And then I'm gonna put some texture on them and some logos. So anyways, there's our screens, and now it's time to fire up this engine that had some rough idle air controllers, test our new idle air controllers, and see how they're sounding. All right, idle air controller test. Priming the system, getting our screens going. Alrighty, here we go. Ooh.
Happy on that one.
Give a little more?
Yeah.
So you guys know we are not the type to pretend we know everything, and one of the things that I need to learn better is how to tune for idle. Basically these engines are a breeze to start up if we throttle up a little bit, but obviously we want them to start with no throttle applied at all. And that's all about tuning idle, and there's a lot of different variables in tuning idle, and we haven't had a lot of time to tune on them, so that's why it's doing that. I'm going to give it a tiny bit of throttle. Luckily the idle air controller sounds good, but I'm going to give it a little bit of throttle now and we'll fire it up. In our next episode, when we're doing our on-water trials, we're going to have a lot more time to mess with tuning and stuff like that, and I think that's where I'm going to get those things dialed in. Everything looks good, a little bit of throttle. Here we go. Much better. I don't know if you can hear me, but you can see it's just those few first seconds of startup. Now we're no throttle and it's all happy. So it's just a tuning thing, but idle air control sounds a lot better. Yeah. All right, now that that engine is off and we can talk, I have another hole here I have plans for. I'm gonna put a wireless charging thing right here because that's a thing a lot of people just need on boats. Now, we talked about this compass hole in the last episode. 6-inch compass hole. I went to buy another compass. It's $1,000. This has a compass built into it that's really good. It has autopilot, but it has all sorts of stuff. If you guys have any ideas what I can do, that thing is in direct sunlight like 24/7. Any ideas of what to put there? If I can't come up with anything, I might just put a speaker there because it would bounce the sound right off of that and at me, which would be really nice for listening to music because the only other speaker is usually behind me down here on the floor, and it's a little quiet. So that's a thought, is just put a speaker in there, 6-inch speaker, but I don't know. If you guys have any other ideas of something that would be useful or cool to put in there, let me know. I don't want to waste $1,000 to have a second compass. Next big task is a maintenance job that's needed to be done on this boat for a long time, and it's replacing the shaft seals. So the shaft runs outboard all the way out there, and there's like a wax rope packing in there that's like a bunch of coils and it allows a little bit of water to come through to cool the shaft as it's rotating, so it doesn't overheat and scar the shaft and stuff like that. So it's a dripping shaft seal. They have to be changed every couple of years. We tried to go to a dripless shaft seal, but that distance there on the shaft was not long enough for us to fit the dripless shaft seal in with this configuration, so it's kind of a bummer. I bought them and we test them out and they just won't fit. So we're just doing the maintenance, and we're using the ones that have to be maintained. Oscar and I have never done this, and if we do it wrong, the boat is going to sink when it goes in the water. So fingers crossed. We watched a YouTube video, so we're certified. All right, shaft seals are done. You know, we don't know if we did it right or not until we do or do not sink, but that was actually a fun little job to do. You buy this little corkscrew tool. It's this little corkscrew tool like this, and you get it in there, turn it, and pull out the old like packings. Count how many you got, and then you go down to the marine supply store, buy new packings, and cut them right and fit them back in there and tighten it down. It was pretty cool.
Make sure you get the right size.
Yeah, just get the right size. Some people, I guess, do this on the water. That sounds very ballsy and watery, but who knows? Not for us. Especially when you consider, quite embarrassingly, that I've owned this boat on dry land longer than I've owned it in the water. But we're working on changing that. All right, guys, it is a new day, and we've got a few more hours of daylight left to wrap up what we can wrap up before tomorrow morning when we go into the water. I'm really excited. That just hits a tone, me even saying that, but let's talk about what we got to finish up and what we got done. We actually did some cool stuff off camera real quick because there's really nothing to film about it. The trim tabs, they work now. We talked about taking off the hydraulic lines a couple episodes back. We got new hydraulic lines made in town. Just put them in, filled it up with fluid. Boom, trim tabs are just working right out of the box, which is awesome. You'll notice the sacrificial anodes now have the paint removed off of them. Yeah, you shouldn't paint over those unless you're like us and gonna store your boat for another 2 years. Then it's a good move. But removed all the paint off of every sacrificial anode on the boat. Oscar is gonna jump into this area and finish off a few odds and ends. Wiring up the raw water pumps is one of those things. Everything's pretty much run for that to happen, so it's a quick little thing to do. He's gonna drill the holes and install the dash semi-permanently until we decide to repaint it. And we got a ton of air filters to go on the 4 different throttle bodies, so he's gonna get those things all buttoned up. We're getting pretty close. Now what I am gonna be working on, and Miss Chelsea is gonna be working on, making this look a lot less crap. So she started doing touch-up with the ablative paint, which is good. This has all got so many weird water stains on it. We're just gonna re-ablative paint the whole back side of that. That's no worries. And then I am gonna start polishing. We polished this boat a couple years ago, but then it's been sitting in the weather for a long time, so it could use another polish. Gonna go ahead and polish the entire boat. The rest of the weathering stuff we're gonna handle once we're on the water, so we can use a pressure washer. So much shinier. Almost done. It got dark enough that I can't even see what I'm doing in the front there, but got other side polished. That's all polished. In the morning I got to do the black strip and then we're good. 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, we are putting this thing on straps and going into the water. Chelsea's got the back all painted up. It's looking really nice. Oh, I also got to do this whole back area right here. And Oscar did his work on the interior. He's got the screens bolted in, the air filters on the engines, the raw water pumps, halfway wired. We didn't have the right gauge wiring, so we're gonna have to do that tomorrow morning, but it's really, really close. Now, the next thing that we want to do is get this whole back area situated right for what we're expecting to do next, which is the sea trials. So for sea trials, I want to be able to see the engines, but I also need somewhere safe to stand to pilot the boat. So this thing right down there is what we stand on, and it goes right up there. And these two big hatches are what cover the engines, and that's what we want to be monitoring during sea trials. So they need to come off. So we're gonna try something. Oscar's got a forklift. We're gonna try and bring that thing over here-ish somewhere. See if Oscar and I can lift these. They are very heavy. Put them on the forklift, bring them down, and then if we get them down successfully, we'll try and get this thing up and put it right there. We got the decking on! It's getting so much more exciting. I have a place to stand to drive my boat. We just now realized that we don't have a steering wheel attached right now, and that is a must-have before going in the water tomorrow, so we'll get that worked out. But this is the idea for our sea trials. Sorry, the spotlight's not the greatest. This is the idea for the sea trials though. Open engine so we can view them, see what's going on. A little bit of space so we can stand, drive, and maybe we'll even add some chairs, we'll see. Good morning, everybody. Another beautiful morning for polishing. I'm gonna polish the rest of this, polish the black strip. All I gotta do is polish until we get this thing on the straps. Oscar's gonna do the steering wheel, raw water pumps, a few small odds and ends. We've got 2 hours, let's make it happen. Got her all polished up and shiny, feeling good about that. Oscar, you got all the other stuff on board done? We have a steering wheel now?
It's on there.
All right. So we realized that these things are way too heavy for us to be considering like walking down to the marina where this boat is gonna be in the next hour or so, hopefully. So we're gonna do the same thing we did last night, throw them on the pallet for the forklift them over the back. We're gonna lift them in there and we'll have seats. Not that we wanted them, but now we'll have them. They are slightly dirty. They're gonna bring this big boy over here, throw some straps around the bottom, we'll touch up the ablative paint on the bottom, and then we should be heading towards the water. There she goes. We got the bottom paint all touched up. Off to the water. I'm beyond excited. Slightly worried about the sideways tilt, but they're dialing that in. I've been excited for a lot of things on this channel, but lately this thing, I'm the most excited about this. Slightly nervous, but also just really stoked to just go try it out. There's a log right in our way, Oscar. There's just a massive log right in front of where we need to go. Oh my God, I don't have keys. I didn't bring the keys. That's okay, we're just gonna have to use lines. All right, we gotta get our fenders down and use our lines. That's a bit of a fail. Like, it's not like the truck's a quarter mile away or anything. It is. Back on the boat, I brought the keys. We got the gas detectors turned on. That's like the first thing we're always gonna do when we get on the boat, so that's good. We did start sinking a little bit immediately because we need to get our shaft seals, our prop shaft seals dialed in. They need to be tightened to the right tightness, but we're looking okay, just a small puddle. And now Oscar wants to try the raw water pump system. So there's the filters for it, there's the valves. We open up the valves, water should be in through those filters and at those pumps. Go ahead and do key on one of the engines, whichever one you want. Okay, so that's fuel. I got no water coming out of the back of here. Well,
I mean, there is a lot of space.
we got something to work on. After a little bit of troubleshooting, aka touching this hose, we've got water going through the system. It's just not going all the way through. I think we're just gonna use a little exhaust to get it on its way.
coming out.
Okay. All right, let's go for engine 2. We're gonna get the second engine fired up. No water yet. All right, guys, we diagnosed stuff for like 2.5 hours. Had some false alarms. Fixed the false alarms because they were false. We think we have a real alarm. We think one of our O2 sensors is dead, which is not uncommon because we did let it sit kind of in open air for a couple of years. So with saltwater air. So we're gonna go ahead and buy another O2 sensor just to double check and verify. But other than that, it's all been false alarms. Those are pretty cool. They're exciting. They keep us on our toes. It's time for a lunch break and an O2 sensor. Got the new O2 sensor installed on the engine. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up. If everything looks right, then this time we are going to push off. Tested the trans, it's all looking good. So Oscar's gonna undo the ropes. It's quite windy, so we're gonna start going that way really fast, and I gotta remember how to drive a boat after 3 years. It should be just like driving a bike. Driving a bike. Well, guys, we are cruising. One small issue is we're cruising a little too fast. That's us trolling. That's as slow as we can go. So we're geared more for speed, I guess, at this point. But, oh well, we're going. We're on the water for the first time. Temps are looking great. AFRs are looking great. Everything's looking good. Oscar's fine-tuning the shaft seals right now. We're gonna try and make it into the marina. This is quite exciting. We did it, guys, the maiden voyage. It went great. It went a little bit faster than I wanted it to. It's quite windy out here, so it's a little bit harder to park than I'm used to. But guys, I mean, it's doing it. It's doing its thing. We've got a lot to figure out on sea trials. I don't know if you can see this, but I somehow got a splinter all the way through my finger that I gotta go figure out. I think there's some cutting involved in that. I'm gonna need a cutoff wheel. It's starting to hurt. But guys, we went out into the bay and came around, and we came through there. We just boated with an LSX swapped Italian yacht. I am so freaking happy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for being a part of this very, very long series that we've worked so hard on over so many years. I am so excited that we hit this milestone. Next episode, sea trials, when we're gonna go out there and actually put these engines to work. It's gonna be so exciting. Please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace!